In like a lion, out like a lamb. Of course, that's how they say March typically goes, but this month it was more like in like a lion, out like a wildebeest. In between, though, most of the month was actually really quiet, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this week's Heather's Weather Wise. March is typically a month of big ups and downs as we crawl from the cold season over towards the warm season. The ups and downs are the rule, but of course rules are meant to be broken, and this year March has been a little bit of a rebel. On average, the temperature for the month wound up being close to 6 degrees above normal. 9 days were in the 60s or 70s. That felt extra nice after having no such mild air since November. Only 3 days in March had temperatures stay below freezing. And an even more rare treat was how much sunshine we got to soak in this month. I looked through the statistics. 17% of the month, at least up until the 23rd, had a completely overcast sky. Now, that may sound relatively high to you, but the average over the last 5 Marches, the entire month total, 42% of the time, the sky was overcast. And of course, without a whole lot of cloud cover, you don't get much precipitation. So here's a look at the rain and snowfall again up until March 23rd, about a week ago. We were well behind in both categories. But recently, we've been playing a little bit of catch up with the rain. But a true sign of tranquility, the lack of wind, at least until last Friday's storm. March is a transition month, and that can mean chaos brought by frequent storm systems that form in spring temperature swings. We've seen more of that in the last few days, but again, the majority of the month was really peaceful. That's what happened. The question is why. And I've got an idea, and it involves looking at the big picture. This past winter, I did a Heather's Weather Wise looking at long-range forecasting methods that we can use in winter. One of those methods is something called the Arctic Oscillation. Well, for most of the month of March, the AO was in a really positive phase. That meant the winds with the jet stream were really strong, essentially locking all of the cold air up around the poles, preventing those big bursts of cold air from dropping south, like what we saw in parts of February. Now, along with that, we had some really strong what we call blocking right over Greenland. A big area of high pressure set up in the mid and upper part of the atmosphere, and it essentially acted like a rock in a stream. Weather systems would try to move in from the west, but they would either have to go north or dive around to the south. So that eventually blocked everything up upstream, and when ridges built in over the eastern U.S., they strengthened and they hung around for a while. These ridges are what brought us all the sunshine and the calm winds. While we lucked out overall in this pattern, parts of the central and southeastern U.S. really haven't. We got repeated calm weather, and those areas got repeated storminess with flooding and severe weather. By the way, kudos to the Climate Prediction Center. This was their monthly outlook for the month of March, beginning on the 1st of the month. This one worked out pretty well, at least for us, and this time around. That's it for this week's Heather's Weather Wise. I'll see you next week with a new topic, but until then, remember it's good to be a geek.